The deadliest extinction ever. An unforgettable story. Did you know that the extinction that wiped out the dinosaurs wasn't the worst disaster Earth has faced? That's right. Long before dinosaurs even roamed the planet, a catastrophic event known as the Great Dying wiped out almost all life on Earth. We're talking about an extinction so massive that it made the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs look like a mere bump in the road. Now, imagine a world where 96% of all species vanished. Plants, animals, marine life, gone in a geological blink of an eye. It's hard to wrap your head around that kind of devastation, isn't it? But this wasn't just a random event. It was the result of an unimaginable chain of natural disasters, all happening one after another, like nature's ultimate domino effect. What caused this catastrophic chain reaction? One word: volcanoes. And not just your average volcanoes, but the massive eruptions of the Siberian traps. These eruptions unleashed so much lava and toxic gas into the atmosphere that they didn't just kill life, they practically rewrote the Earth's environment. Think of it as the worst version of climate change imaginable. But this wasn't just a bad day for the planet. It was an apocalyptic nightmare that lasted for thousands of years. The oceans boiled, the skies turned toxic, and the land became a barren wasteland. Nothing was spared. Even species that had survived millions of years of evolution couldn't escape this ultimate test of survival. Yet, even in the face of such destruction, some tiny, resilient creatures found a way to endure. They adapted to their hostile environment, becoming symbols of nature's ability to bounce back. These survivors would go on to shape the next chapter of Earth's story, proving that life, no matter how fragile, can endure the unthinkable. So what makes this event so fascinating today? Scientists believe that understanding the Great Dying can teach us important lessons about our planet's future. By studying how life was nearly wiped out and how it recovered, we might gain insights into preventing similar catastrophes in the future. Intrigued yet? It gets even better. Now that we've set the stage, let's dive into the world before this extinction. Picture a supercontinent called Pangaea, intense heat and vast deserts. What was Earth like before the Great Dying turned it into a living nightmare? Stick around. You won't believe how different the planet was back then. Earth. Before the Great Dying. A world you wouldn't recognize. Let's rewind the clock 250 million years. The Earth was a very different place. Picture one giant supercontinent called Pangaea, stretching from pole to pole, surrounded by a single vast ocean. Sounds impressive, right? But here's the catch. Most of it was a scorching desert. Forget lush forests or green valleys. This was a land of extreme heat and dryness. Temperatures near the equator weren't just hot, they were downright unbearable. Scientists estimate some regions reached a sizzling 74 degrees, 165 degrees C. For comparison, that's hotter than most ovens. If you left a steak outside, it'd probably cook. This extreme heat made it nearly impossible for most life forms to thrive in these areas. Life clung to the edges of Pangaea, where conditions were slightly less harsh. Coastal regions and shallow seas were bustling with marine life. Coral reefs, early fish, and trilobites, think of them as ancient horseshoe crabs, ruled these waters. Meanwhile, the land was home to some strange creatures like reptiles and early ancestors of mammals. Plants weren't having an easy time either. Dense forests were rare, limited to cooler, wetter parts of the supercontinent. Instead, hardy plants like ferns and conifers dominated the landscape. They were the true survivors of their time, eking out a living in this unforgiving environment while setting the stage for future ecosystems. Despite the harsh conditions, life was thriving, at least for now. But this balance was fragile. The extreme climate, combined with the limitations of a single landmass, left ecosystems vulnerable. Species had fewer places to migrate, and when disaster struck, it would hit hard. Little did they know, The clock was ticking. Understanding life before the Great Dying gives us a glimpse of how ecosystems functioned under intense environmental stress. It's a reminder that Earth's history is full of challenges, and life has always found a way to adapt, or perish trying. This was a world on the brink, teetering between survival and collapse. And then came the tipping point, the Siberian traps. Imagine a volcanic event so massive it altered the very air and water that life depended on. In the next section, we'll explore how these eruptions turned Earth from a tough place to a nearly uninhabitable one. You won't believe just how far-reaching the damage was. The Siberian traps, volcanoes that changed everything now. Let's talk about the Siberian traps, an eruption so massive it redefined bad day. Picture this, giant cracks in the earth spewing lava non-stop for 200,000 years. Yes, you read that right, 200,000 years. This wasn't just a volcano, it was a geological tantrum that covered an area larger than the entire United States in molten rock. These weren't the explosive eruptions we usually imagine. The Siberian traps oozed lava like a pot of soup boiling over. Slowly but relentlessly, it buried everything in its path. If that wasn't bad enough, the volcanic activity pumped out massive amounts of greenhouse gases, like carbon dioxide and methane, creating a suffocating blanket around the planet. This greenhouse effect caused global temperatures to spike. Oceans warmed to dangerous levels, turning them into something closer to a hot tub than a habitat. Marine life, from tiny plankton to massive predators, couldn't cope. Coral reefs, the rainforests of the sea, crumbled under the heat. Entire ecosystems vanished almost overnight. The air didn't fare any better. The eruptions released toxic chemicals like sulfur dioxide, which mixed with the atmosphere to create acid rain. Imagine rain so corrosive it could destroy plant life and poison water sources. Even creatures far from the volcanic zones couldn't escape the deadly reach of these gases. It wasn't just the immediate damage that made the Siberian trap so devastating. It was the chain reaction. The release of gases disrupted the delicate balance of carbon cycles, leading to more warming, ocean acidification, and massive wildfires. The planet became a hostile environment for nearly every form of life. By the end of this volcanic marathon, Earth was a very different place. Up to 96% of all species were gone. The once thriving world of Pangaea had become a near wasteland. But believe it or not, some creatures managed to cling to life, defying the odds in the face of this unparalleled catastrophe. Next, we'll dive into the full scope of destruction these events caused, from burning forests to suffocating seas. How did this ripple effect reshape the planet, and what lessons can we learn from such a massive collapse? Keep watching. Things are about to get even more intense. Earth in chaos, the unstoppable domino effect. Imagine Earth turning into a giant oven where every corner is hostile to life. That's exactly what happened during the Great Dying. Temperatures soared, forests burned, oceans boiled, and skies filled with ash. It wasn't just one disaster. It was like the planet was hosting every possible catastrophe at the same time. The result? A complete environmental meltdown on a scale we can barely comprehend. First, let's talk about the forests. Massive wildfires swept across continents, reducing lush greenery to ash. With no trees to absorb carbon dioxide, the greenhouse effect grew even worse. It was a vicious cycle. More fires meant more CO2, which meant more heat. The air became so toxic that surviving plants and animals were fighting a losing battle just to breathe. Meanwhile, the oceans weren't safe either. Warming waters caused oxygen levels to plummet, creating dead zones where almost nothing could survive. Picture vast stretches of water that looked normal on the surface but were completely lifeless underneath. Marine ecosystems, from coral reefs to top predators, collapsed faster than you can say climate disaster. And if that wasn't enough, Acid rain turned rivers and lakes into chemical death traps. Sulfur dioxide from the Siberian traps mixed with water vapor to create a deadly brew. This acidic cocktail poisoned everything it touched: plants, animals, even the soil. The effects rippled across the food chain, leaving no species untouched. Above all, the atmosphere itself became a weapon. With volcanic gases thickening the air, temperatures kept climbing. UV radiation spiked as the ozone layer weakened, exposing life to harmful rays. Imagine stepping outside and feeling like you're in a microwave. It was survival of the luckiest, not the fittest. But the chaos didn't stop there. Massive storms and hypercanes, think hurricanes on steroids, tore through what little life remained. These superstorms destroyed habitats and scattered species, making recovery nearly impossible. The world wasn't just hostile, it was downright uninhabitable. Despite this apocalyptic scenario, some resilient creatures found ways to endure, sparking a faint glimmer of hope. How did they manage it? And what could humans learn from their survival? In the next section, we'll focus on these unlikely heroes and the lessons they hold for our future. The aftermath: life's fight for survival. As the dust settled, literally, Earth was unrecognizable. Up to 96% of species had vanished, and yet, against all odds, a few tenacious survivors clung to life. Among them was the Lystrosaurus, a stubby, pig-like creature that became the unlikely hero of this apocalyptic story. Think of it as the ultimate underdog, or underpig, that refused to bow out of evolution. So, what made the Lystrosaurus so special? Unlike many of its neighbors, this tough little herbivore could adapt. It burrowed underground to escape the worst of the heat and thrived on the sparse vegetation that managed to grow. Its ability to live in extreme conditions earned it the title of dominant species, making up about 95% of land vertebrates at the time. But it wasn't just the Lystrosaurus holding on. Some fish and marine organisms also survived in pockets of water that remained oxygen-rich. These aquatic refuges became lifeboats for the oceans, allowing life to hang on by a thread. If you've ever had a houseplant survive against all odds, you know what this persistence feels like, just on a much bigger scale. What's fascinating is how these survivors reshaped Earth's ecosystems. With so many species wiped out, the survivors had little competition. This led to rapid evolution and diversification. In other words, nature hit the reset button and new life forms started to emerge, filling the gaps left by the extinction. However, recovery was slow, painfully slow. It took millions of years for life to regain its footing. Imagine watching grass grow, but in geological time. Even so, this gradual rebound laid the foundation for future biodiversity, paving the way for the world we know today. The survivors didn't just endure, they rebuilt. The story of survival during the Great Dying isn't just about resilience, it's a lesson in adaptation. Life on Earth has always been a master of reinvention, bouncing back stronger after every disaster. These survivors remind us that even in the face of overwhelming odds, nature finds a way to keep going. Next, we'll look at how this recovery unfolded and the incredible changes it brought to Earth's ecosystems. How did these tiny glimmers of hope evolve into the rich, vibrant life forms we see today? You won't want to miss the inspiring next chapter in this journey of life, the slow road to recovery. Life rebuilds. Imagine Earth as a house after a hurricane, battered, broken, and in desperate need of a makeover. After the Great Dying, life didn't just bounce back overnight. It took around 10 million years for ecosystems to even begin resembling their former selves. That's like waiting for your favorite TV show to return for another season, only stretched over eons. The rebuilding process was slow, but it was also incredible. New species started to emerge, filling the gaps left by the mass extinction. Early reptiles evolved to dominate the land, and the ancestors of modern amphibians and mammals began to make their mark. This was nature's version of an open casting call, with evolution choosing the next stars of Earth's stage. One of the biggest changes was the emergence of new ecosystems. Coral reefs, for example, slowly made a comeback, but they looked nothing like the vibrant underwater paradises we know today. These early reefs were more like nature's rough drafts, but they were crucial in restoring marine life and creating habitats for a new generation of species. Even the climate began to stabilize, albeit slowly. Over millions of years, volcanic gases dissipated, temperatures dropped, and the air became breathable again. This gradual shift allowed plants to re-establish themselves, creating the first green shoots of recovery. Think of it as Earth's way of turning a scorched wasteland into a fertile garden. But recovery wasn't without setbacks. For millions of years, Earth's ecosystems were fragile, teetering on the edge of collapse. With so many species gone, there was little room for error. One small disruption could send the whole system spiraling. Yet, life persisted, proving just how resilient nature can be when given the chance. As these new ecosystems took shape, they paved the way for the Triassic period, a time of growth and innovation in Earth's evolutionary story. The survivors of the Great Dying weren't just rebuilding, they were reinventing life itself, setting the stage for the rise of dinosaurs and eventually mammals. Next, we'll dive into the legacy of the Great Dying and what it means for us today. How did this ancient extinction shape the world we live in now, and what can we learn from it to ensure our own survival? Stay tuned. The final chapter will tie it all together in ways you won't expect. The Great Dying's legacy, lessons from Earth's darkest hour. The Great Dying wasn't just a tragic chapter in Earth's history, it was a turning point. This extinction reshaped life on the planet, setting the stage for the world we know today. Without it, dinosaurs might not have risen, mammals might not have evolved, and humans. We might not even be here to tell the story. Talk about a plot twist. This event also gave scientists a roadmap to understanding how life bounces back from catastrophe. It's a reminder that while nature can be brutal, it's also incredibly resilient. Life adapts, evolves, and finds new ways to thrive. The survivors of the Great Dying weren't just lucky, they were innovators, paving the way for Earth's next big evolutionary leaps. But here's the catch. The same forces that caused the Great Dying, climate change, rising temperatures, and environmental disruption are happening again, only this time we're the ones causing them. The legacy of this extinction isn't just history, it's a warning. The question is, will we learn from it? What's inspiring is that the Great Dying shows us recovery is possible, even after unimaginable devastation. However, the cost was massive, millions of years and countless species lost. It's a sobering reminder that while life will go on, the price of carelessness is steep. We have the tools to avoid a similar fate, but it's up to us to act. And let's not forget the hope. The tiny, scrappy survivors of the Great Dying prove that even in the darkest times, life finds a way. Whether it's a burrowing reptile or a resilient plant, nature always fights back. That same spirit exists today, and it's something we can draw strength from as we face our own challenges. So, where do we go from here? Understanding the Great Dying isn't just about looking back, it's about looking forward. By studying how life nearly ended and how it recovered, we can make better choices to protect our planet and ourselves. The past holds the key to a more sustainable future. As we close this chapter, let's take a moment to appreciate the resilience of life and our own role in shaping its next chapter. The Great Dying is a story of destruction, survival, and rebirth. What happens next? That's up to us. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments and keep the conversation going. Hey everyone! Did you enjoy today's video? We'd love to hear your thoughts and, more importantly, your ideas. What kind of videos would you like to see on the channel? Drop your suggestions in the comments because your feedback makes all the difference. Oh, and if you're not subscribed yet, take a moment now to subscribe and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss any updates and will help our community grow. Let's build this channel together.